in a trial and a trouble, have you ever opened your mind to the possibility that God is trying to teach you something? You know, many of us, we shake our fist at God and say, God is doing this to you. Is he doing it to you or for you? What? It's going to sink in at some point later. I'm like, wow, it's really good. That's not for me, that's from Lauren. Then we have temptation. Temptation is not from God. Temptation is from the evil one. In the garden, God didn't send the snake to go tempt Adam and Eve. Right? God did not send Potiphar to Joseph to tempt Joseph. That's from the evil one. The trials and the troubles, they're there to take our mess and turn it into a message, to turn our tragedy into triumph. It's to draw us closer to God. Temptation wants to draw us away from God because it's from the evil one. He wants us to fail. Potiphar's wife, the evil one, wanted Joseph to fail. The brothers wanted Joseph to fail and walk away from God. And what happened is, finally, when Potiphar comes to Joseph and she throws himself at her, what does he do? I see him like running. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. He got out of there. And what happens? She grabs a hold of his outer cloak, right? Whoop. So all of a sudden, he's standing there in his undershirt and his BVDs. And Potiphar comes home. Right? We kind of sanitize the gospel. He's standing there in his underwear. And Potiphar comes home. And she said, Potiphar, you'll never believe what your servant Joseph, what he tried to do to me. Right? And he's standing there in his underwear going, no, I didn't. And Joseph, you in your underwear, bro. Like, you should probably go put some clothes on before you, right? And because she had this outer cloak, Potiphar's like, man, Joseph, because of your disobedience, because of your lack of trust, you no longer have, he thought, your character, you no longer have your honesty, you no longer have your integrity. And Joseph's like, but I didn't do anything. And God blesses him by putting him into prison. How many trials and troubles are we found in because God is allowing things to happen to us so we become more fully reliant upon Him? In this world you will have trouble. Listen to the second part of that promise. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. God may not deliver us from prison. God may not deliver us from the lion's den. God may not deliver us from the fiery furnace. God may not deliver us from those who want to attack and kill us. The promise is He will be there with us. He'll shut the mouth of the lion. They'll look into the fiery furnace and go, whoa, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Did we throw in 3 Hebrew children? Who is the fourth one? And why does he look like the Son of God? Oh, it's because he showed up. So quit throwing your little sob story. Quit boo-hooing about yourself. I have all these troubles. I have all these trials. God, why are you doing this to me? And ask this question, what are you trying to teach me? God, make yourself known to me. He finds himself in prison, right? And this is where the story, you think, okay, ready? It's like an episode of 24. It has to get better at some point. It has to have some resolution. It just never does. So he finds himself in prison, and there's the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker. Wait, didn't it tell? No. Just a cupbearer, and a baker. The butcher must have been somewhere else. And the cupbearer and the baker, or the chief baker and the chief cupbearer, who are in a relationship in a close proximity to Pharaoh. And they both have this dream, right? The baker, I have this dream, and I have this basket of bread, and this basket of bread is all the lovely baguettes and little loaves of bread and French croissants, and they're in this little basket. It's on my head, and these birds come, and they eat it, and they pluck out my eyes, and they eat my skin. What is that all about? Right? And the cupbearer is like, I have these grapes that grow, and what happens is we pluck these grapes, and it's the finest wine, and Pharaoh's drinking from this cup that I have from him. And you're thinking, that's some bad Taco Bell, right? That's just some weird dreams. I don't know what you're talking about. And they come to Joseph because now Joseph is put in charge of the prison. Why? Because God was with him and blessed him, and he was successful in everything that he did. second. If God was blessing him, why didn't he remove them from prison? Great question. For a time such as this. The dreams come, and if Joseph wasn't there, if God would have delivered him from the prison, no one would be there to interpret the dream. So he says to the baker, it says to the cupbearer, I got great news for you. In 3 days, there's going to be this festival and this celebration. The 3 grapes, and in 3 days, you're going to be restored to your position, and you're going to be with Pharaoh. Great story, great dream. So now the baker's thinking, hey, I think something's good's going to happen to me. So I have this bread and the baguettes and the French croissants and all this stuff, and it's in this basket. It's on my head. The birds come and they eat it and they kind of pluck out. What is that all about? In 3 days in the festival, remember when he's going to be having this party? You actually are going to be hanged, and the birds are going to come and eat your flesh. What? Like that literally is my blessing? He's like, don't shoot the messenger. And in 3 days it happens, right? The baker's hanged and the birds come and they eat his flesh. 3 days, the cupbearer is restored to his position. And Joseph says this, please remember me. Maybe you can get the ear of Pharaoh and he can pardon me and I can get on with my life. Because God obviously has this plan for me. I just don't know what it is. I end up being accused of adultery and thrown in prison and slavery. Woo! You ever feel like that? Yeah, I have. You've been put in unfair situations. And you shake your fist at God, but why did you do this to me? And God says 2 or 4. It's up to you. Okay. God, why are you doing this for me? What are you trying to teach me? Now you're asking the right question. Pretty soon, Pharaoh has a dream. And the dream's this. I see 7 fat cows. Just big and healthy. 7 of them. And all of a sudden, up out of the Nile comes 7 skinny cows. And the 7 skinny cows come and eat the 7 fat cows. Anybody know what that means? All the king's horses and all the king's men, they couldn't figure it out. All the magicians, all the wise guys, they got together, they couldn't figure it out. He had another dream. There's 7 huge stalks of wheat. And then there's 7 skinny stalks of wheat. And the 7 skinny stalks of wheat devour the 7 fat stalks of wheat. Anybody know what that means? And everyone's like, I know what that means. Quit drinking alcohol before bed. Not helping. 2 years later. 2 years later. Remember me when you're in a position of authority with Pharaoh? Come find me. Maybe you can get me out of this predicament that I'm in. 2 years goes by before God remembers the promise. Before the cupbearer realized, hey. There was one time I was in prison. You want to know why he's in prison? To interpret the dream of the cupbearer so that later the cupbearer would be able to tell Pharaoh about this guy who's in prison. What? You mean God knows what he's doing? Yeah, he's pretty awesome that way. You mean God's in control of all this and he's orchestrating all of this? Yeah, it's pretty cool that way. And Joseph, a man of integrity, not a man of just honesty and character, a man of integrity, when nobody else was looking, was faithful to God and obedient to God, and now he has an audience before Pharaoh. 7 years. Feast. Fat cows, fat stocks. In 7 years of famine. We're going to have desolation and nothing. I think what we should do is during the 7 years of feast, take 20%, hold it back to get us through the famine. And Pharaoh's like, for real? Good idea. I'm going to put you second in command. Only I will be greater than you, Joseph. And they changed his name to a word with way too many vowels and not enough syllables. It's like, shaves his head and makes him become Egyptian. You want to know why he was sold into slavery? You want to know why he was accused of adultery? You want to know why he was in prison? Yes, please tell me why. Because God was setting him up because he knew that he was going to be in a position of authority. He wanted to be in a position of power. And authority and power, and absolute authority and absolute absolute power. It corrupts absolutely. Amen? Amen?
Amen.
You don't believe me? Go read the paper and see about the corruption that takes place when we forget about the authority that we have comes from God. And God was setting him up to say, I want to make sure that your character and that your honesty and that your integrity is in check, and that you're going to rely fully on me and not just yourself. What I love is when you read 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. All those is there. Now there's an interaction with his brothers. See, there's a third thing that happens in this life. We have trials and troubles, amen? Those are from God. He wants to take our mess and turn it into a message. He wants to take our tragedy and turn it into a triumph. The trials and the troubles that we have come from God. They draw us closer to God. Temptation comes from the evil one. Wants to draw us farther away from God. There's a third category, and they're called trespasses. Trespasses are those things that happen with other people around us. It's broken relationships. It's when somebody breaks their word, when somebody breaks their trust. It's the most dangerous of the three. Why? Because a trial is for our benefit to make us become God-like. Like God. Not that we're going to walk around and be able to create and walk on water and do all this stuff. It helps us to become more like God. The temptation, what happens is, yes, if we fall into temptation, if we sin, it drives us away from God. But when we defeat temptation, we defeat and overcome the evil one, guess what? We also become like God, right? We can stand up and see, hey, you know what? I'm able to overcome the temptation. Trespasses are most difficult. Why? Is because it's from brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and husbands and wives and parents. And we have to look at them every single second of every single day. Jesus, when he taught us to pray, said, forgive us our trespasses when we offend and hurt and sin against other people, like they hurt, offend, and sin against us. He shows it with his brothers. And I love this because he sets, in the course of an action, a series of events where he comes to the big reveal. And you can feel the anticipation building. Remember the show a long time ago, Extreme Home Makeover? They would have this little dilapidated house, and they would go and make it into this really extravagant thing, right? And they would have the big bus that was there, and you're on one side of the bus, and you're like, at home, I find myself saying, move that bus! I'm not even there. Move that bus! And all of a sudden they move, and there's like weeping, and you're like, oh, it's so great. I cry like when I watch that show. Because you're like, it's so amazing. I actually kind of like this movie, girl, because you don't ruin the right? I read that in Genesis 47, 48, and 49. Here comes the big reveal. Move that bus! And he takes off his headdress and says, hey, my name is I'm actually Joeseph. And this is what it says in the original language. Are you ready? The brothers said, ah! Because they remember the trespass. Wait a second. You're the little boy that we sold into slavery like all those years ago. 20 years later, you are now second in command. Oh, my goodness. I can imagine him saying, we're dead, man. He's going to kill us. And Joseph starts weeping. Because he had already forgiven the trespass. He had already come to a different level of living and a different level of loving. He wasn't captured. He wasn't trapped by their trespass. He was set free. And whom the Son sets free. It's free indeed. Those are words in red. Those are Jesus. Look it up. And he goes and he gets his daddy. And he gets to figure out, like, the youngest son, the most loved of Israel, was a man by the name of Benjamin. I love that name. I think if you're ever going to have a children or a grandchild, we should name everybody Benjamin. It's a great name. It's like my mighty right hand. And the family is there, and all of a sudden, like, everything, like, is perfect. Why? Because Joseph, a man of integrity, said, when I face the trials and the temptations and the trespasses of this life, God, it's all about you. In all